UFC Fight Night, Brandon Royval versus Tatsuro Taira is coming up this weekend, with the main event obviously being a title eliminator for the flyweight division. And I'm going to be giving you my predictions and breakdown for every single fight on the card, and I'll also be giving you my predictions and breakdown for all the best moments of the card. So let's kick it off with the first fight of Clayton Carpenter versus Lucas Rocha. Now, Clayton is the guy that I'm more keen on in this matchup because, first of all, he's never been finished, and second of all, the experience that he does have with the tools that he does have is what I'm more keen on here. When we look at the ground game, very aggressive from guard. He's got pretty long legs for the division, for the fighters there. So he throws up triangles well. He also, when he transitions, very good transitions on the ground. He can transition to the back, lock in a body triangle, and get a rear naked choke, which we have seen before, literally in his last fight. And also, he is very good on the feet. He feints very well to set up head kicks. And with the experience, especially on the feet, which Edgar Chairez fought him and was giving it to him, but he came back, fought extremely well, kept on the gas, kept on the pace, and beat Chairez, hurt Chairez as well. And Chairez only gets hurt by guys like Josh Van, who are pretty much at that top 15 position. So it shows how good Clayton Carpenter is at this level. And even with his wrestling, very good double legs, great timing on them. And yeah, overall, he just doesn't have many holes in his game, at least for this level of competition, which Rocha is. And Rocha on the ground, yes, 4-0 with submissions, but transitionally, not as good as Clayton Carpenter. Now, his timing on the feet, which could be trouble for Clayton, is the best part of his game. He's very good at just timing his strikes, whether it be obviously his punches, or his knees. His knees, he took out Bittencourt on Dana White's Contender Series with a knee pretty brutally. And overall, yes, he's dangerous on the feet, but Carpenter, with the takedown offense and his ability to just take it wherever he really wants it, I'm going to be taking him by a unanimous decision win here. Moving up the card to Dan Argueta versus Cody Haddon. Now, Cody Haddon is the real deal. This is someone that you really need to look out for, especially not only on this card, just in the UFC in general, because just like Clayton Carpenter, this guy is even more complete. This guy has very clean boxing. When it comes to the legs as well, very good kickboxing. He chips at the legs, chips at the body, chips at the head. Very good outside leg kicks as well to chop down forward pressure, which Dan Argueta is all about the forward pressure. He wants to get into the ugly exchanges with the wrestling and everything like that. Cody Haddon is a guy that, I mean, the boxing pedigree from Perth, we've got Urseg, we've got JDM as well, and now we've got Cody Haddon. And Cody Haddon, he's 7-1. His only loss is to Steve Urseg himself. And Steve Urseg said he was very, very hard to keep on the ground. And Dan Argueta, with his game, he needs to keep him on the ground because he does not have the striking arsenal, the tools to take out Haddon or, just even stand with him on the feet realistically. Cody Haddon is too quick, too powerful, and also when it gets to the ground with Argueta and that wrestling basis, Cody Haddon's a BJJ black belt on top of that. So there's not really many holes there. And look, Argueta, he is tough to deal with. He's very, very pressure heavy. He doesn't let you breathe. But Cody Haddon, having those tools, really, he can just take it wherever he wants it. And I honestly think he's going to get a KO, TKO finish in the second to the third round. I think he's going to do a very good job of putting the knees in, timing the knees, chopping the body, chopping the legs as well to really, really slow down Argueta's takedown attempts. And without that, I think he's a sitting duck. And I think Haddon is just going to land a very nice combination. Two-piece, maybe an uppercut to a hook, and I think he's going to drop him and TKO him. Moving up to Junior Tafa versus Sean Sharaf. Now, Sean Sharaf, obviously new into the UFC. Junior Tafa has been around for a little bit. So if you haven't seen any of Sharaf's fights before, he is a bit of a KO machine. He's 4-0, obviously, with KOs, and he's KO'd everyone in the first round. Now, that's not just from him being, this big brute or anything like that. He does actually have fairly decent boxing. He's got very fast hands, nice uppercuts as well.
But the big issue is the level of the opposition that he was fighting on the regional scene. Way too lower level in comparison to what Junior Tafa is going to bring. And Tafa not only has the boxing on the feet, he's got the experience in kickboxing as well. That kickboxing arsenal is going to be the difference here, because Sean Sharaf, with that aggression, Tafa has very good timing and movement when it comes to the feet. And Tafa, especially with his knees, I think that they are going to be very effective. Using the knees, utilizing the kicks as well, because Tafa, unlike his brother, Junior is actually pretty agile overall compared to a lot of other heavyweights, and I think that's where Sean Sharaf is going to be surprised to see how quick Junior Tafa is. But not only that, he's going to be surprised to see how accurate he is in comparison to himself, and I think it's just going to be a matter of time before we get a nice check over the top right hook. Junior Tafa is going to take this guy out. Moving up the card, Niko Price versus Themba Gorimbo. Now, overall, look, Niko Price, he won his last fight against Alex Morono, but I think Alex Morono just looked like absolute horseshit in that fight, and I don't think Niko Price just really has much to offer anymore. He is calm and cool under pressure, I will say, whether it comes to the ground, whether it comes to the feet. He just needs to not get in a clinch exchange, otherwise he's going to get Robbie Lawlered. But Themba Gorimbo is a guy that isn't really known for his KO power per se, and he's more so known for his jiu-jitsu. Now, Niko Price being cool under pressure, I think he can survive Gorimbo when it comes to the feet or on the ground. But Gorimbo is going to be taking this one way or another, and I think it's going to be by a decision here. I think that Themba is just going to do a very good job of really suffocating Price in the clinch exchanges. I think he's going to do a good job of that, land some pretty good clinch strikes, but Gorimbo doesn't have Robbie Lawler's power, and Niko Price would have learnt positional awareness since getting chinned by Robbie Lawler to an extent. And ultimately, I just don't think that Gorimbo is going to do the same thing. But overall, I think Themba Gorimbo is going to be able to get this done with the control, whether it's on the ground, whether it's against the cage. And ultimately, I think that Gorimbo's probably greatest asset, aside from his jiu-jitsu, being those clinch exchanges and the strength that he does have, which he showed against Brahima in his last fight, which was his best attribute. It goes against Niko Price's worst attribute, which is obviously standing in the clinch and just, really just hoping. And yeah, Themba Gorimbo, straight strikes, his volume overall and the clinch striking with the control, he's going to be taking this by a unanimous decision win. Moving up the card to Jonathan Pearce versus Pat Sabatini. Now, this is a close fight because we have the experience of Jonathan Pearce. He's fought very good competition. I mean, he's fought Joanderson Brito, who is a freak of nature, and he made that fight competitive. And then he fought David Onama as well earlier in the year, which he should have won 29-28. So he's really matched up well he's proven himself well against higher up competition that are better than Pat Sabatini. Now, me saying that it could be close is that Pat Sabatini, elephant in the room, his submission game, 11-0 with submissions, which is ultimately, it's going to be dangerous. But when you look at his submission specifically, I would normally say against a wrestler like Jonathan Pearce, who just loves to get the fight to the ground, it would be bad. But Sabatini is more so very good at submissions on top, and when he has the back with rear naked chokes and transitioning from, like arm bars on top. I think Sabatini has like one guillotine on his record. The others are pretty much all rear naked chokes, knee bars, and arm bars overall. And with Pearce not really, engaging in that sense, and really, he's very good transitionally. And Pearce isn't really someone that's gonna, have his back taken unless Sabatini is somehow able to out wrestle him, which I don't think he can. And ultimately, look, Sabatini on the feet, I'm not liking. Pearce, 9-1 with KOs. He's got the power there. Very nice elbows as well. And Pat Sabatini has been busted up by Damon Jackson. He's been busted up by Diego Lopez in the UFC alone. And I'm just a bigger fan of Pearce's striking overall. Not only with the power, he's got better output as well. And yeah, if Sabatini can't get this to the ground, I think Jonathan Pearce is going to be taking this fight, and I think it's going to be by a decision win here. It could be a KO TKO, but I think Sabatini is crafty enough, especially with the experience of what's happened to him against Damon Jackson, against Diego Lopez. Those, like, they're pretty good, obviously Diego Lopez, but even Damon Jackson is very good competition, very experienced. And I think he is crafty enough to get into positions where he can be taking damage, but he can survive out Pearce's, onslaught of strikes, whether it's on the feet or on the ground. And I think with Pearce not really wanting to take it to the ground against someone with the submission threat like that, I think he is going to be wanting to outpoint Sabatini in this one, and that's what I think he'll do. Moving up the card to CJ Vergara versus Ramazan Temirov. Now, CJ Vergara, very durable fighter, very good movement. He's got power as well, but most of all, it's his competition. He's fought much better competition than Ramazan Temirov has. Ramazan Temirov has only been on the regional scene thus far, and Vergara, with his striking, quite technical, got clean boxing, and nice head kicks to follow up with the boxing exchanges. And his combinations overall, I think, are fairly clean. But if you haven't seen Ramazan Temirov before, this guy is like a Tasmanian devil. He is so fast, so rapid, so aggressive in his exchanges. And in this matchup, the speed is the biggest difference here I see. And that's where I think CJ Vergara is going to struggle. Temirov has been decimating people on the regional scene. He has won 4 of his last 5 by KO. And that's just due to his very, very fast hands. He's got very fast hands, nice spinning back kicks to either the body or the head, and he loves a hook in the clinch. And when it comes to these guys, if they're in an exchange, which I think is going to happen, because let's not talk about their submission game. This is staying on the feet unless one of them really gets hurt and they have to hope shoot, which I think it's going to be Vergara, because we're judging these guys based on their styles. I think in an exchange, Temirov is going to be able to get this one done. And granted, Vergara and Temirov have never been finished before, 17-0 with KO TKOs. I just think Temirov has got it in the bag. I think he's just too quick in the exchanges. He's hungry, he's hyped up, he's got a lot of momentum behind him. And overall, even though Vergara is good, I think Temirov is just going to be a little bit too much for him. Unless Vergara can rip the body, rip the legs to really slow him down early, use a lot of movement around the outside of the cage. I just think Temirov is just too much of a dog, and I think he's going to get him. I think he's going to catch Vergara in an exchange and get the ground and pound finish at the end of round 1. Moving up the card to Chidi Njokuani versus Jared Gooden. Now, this will be a close fight. Granted, they pretty much are the same rankings in the welterweight division at the moment. And it's a contrast of styles. We got Gooden, who is very good on the ground, very good ground game, 7-0 with submissions. But the man has got to get it to the ground to make that happen. And Chidi Njokuani is very good with his takedown defense, stuffs 75% of them. And if we go off recency bias as well, because obviously that 75% can be across his whole career, and they could all be very swelled at the start of his career. But Njokuani, in his last fight against Rhys McKee, stuffed all 7 of McKee's takedowns. So he's definitely still got it with the takedown defense. Very good at making sure that the opposition can't link their hands, because Njokuani has very long legs. And speaking of that, on the feet, Njokuani is just better. He's got much cleaner striking. He's much more accurate. Very good leg kicks, body kicks, head kicks. He's pretty much got anything with that long leg reach. And I will say his chin is suspect. And Jared Gooden, he's got power there, 11-2 with KOs. But Njokuani, if you look at his actual opposition that he's lost against, he's only lost against guys that are fairly technical, but that have a lot of power. And that's like Olachaychek and guys like Robocop as well, which he gave both of them some trouble as well. And Jared Gooden is just not on the same striking level as both of those guys. And Gooden, poor strike defense, which Njokuani is going to be able to take advantage of. But Gooden, He's durable. He is durable. That's where I think Njokuani is going to be able to get a very clean decision win here. I think Gooden might take the first round just based off clinch exchanges and the strikes and the strength that he does have. But I think Njokuani is going to be able to manage the distance once he gets warmed up into the fight. And I think he's going to be able to use those long straight strikes, just really chopping down the legs of Gooden to stop any real takedown offensive threat. And I think he's going to get the decision win here. Now, on a little bit of a side note, if Njokuani does lose this fight, especially if he gets chinned, with his stature, I think he needs to move up to middleweight, without a doubt, especially being 35, being that tall and having that length. I think he's going to have to move up, because if he's going to rejuvenate his career by any means, he needs to fill out a bit more and give his chin a bit of a break from the weight cut. So yeah, ultimately, I don't see that happening though. I think Chidi Njokuani is going to get a pretty entertaining finish here with his technical striking. Now, moving up the card, Abdul Razak Alhassan versus Josh Fremd. Now, as anyone that does face Abdul Razak Alhassan, fucking mouthful, Fremd is really going to need to make sure that he gets this fight to the ground as soon as possible, because not only with Alhassan being able to land absolute bombs, Fremd is that height compared to Alhassan where his chin, if it is not tucked, it is getting taken off his skull, because 6'4", 5'10", Alhassan, aggressive fighter that pressures forward and gets in your face. The chin is there for the taking, and ultimately I think that that is what's going to happen. I think Alhassan is going to be able to find that opportunity early, but you also got to say as well, Josh Fremd on the other side, he has KOs, he has submissions, and if he gets this fight to the ground, it's his. If he gets to the ground, it's his to take, unless Alhassan can explode out of the grappling exchanges that Fremd has. But as we saw against Petrosky, I mean, Petrosky is obviously a lot better on the ground than Alhassan, but Fremd really does struggle, even against strength against him on the ground. And that's where Alhassan, there might even be a chance he could do a takedown of his own, but I think that's going a little bit left field. Josh Fremd, I just think that ultimately, if he's not really chopping down Alhassan and he's not, circling out consistently, chopping down the legs, chopping down the body, I just don't think he's going to be able to do enough to really get Alhassan out of there or chop him down enough without Alhassan clipping him at least once. And if Alhassan clips this guy at least once or twice, I think he's getting dropped and slumped. And I think it's going to be a KO finish as well. I think it'll be at the start of the second round. I think with Alhassan improving his takedown defense, especially, when he's fought guys like Joe Pyfer as well, who have that physical presence, that's where he can struggle. But Josh Fremd, he just doesn't have that stature and real presence that Joe Pyfer brings. And I think Alhassan, with that experience, I think that he's going to be able to take this by a very brutal KO finish. Moving up the card to D-Rod versus Alex Morono. Now, I pretty much picked Morono in pretty much every single one of my fight predictions, whether it was when I had the YouTube channel or not. But look, I'm going to say Morono did look absolutely horrific against Niko Price, which was his last fight, and I don't know what the hell happened to him. So here's a bit of a wild card. But I'm going to take him again. I'm going to take Alex Morono again, and that's down to him mainly being the younger fighter, being the faster fighter. He's got a good ground game. He's got pretty decent stand-up game as well. Mixes up his strikes a lot better than D-Rod does. And D-Rod aging, not being as fast, and he's just nowhere near his best self. I just don't see him winning this fight. I think, look, D-Rod, he's got good boxing. Don't get me wrong. I think he could give Morono some trouble there. And he does have some offensive submissions, but Morono, I think, is just too aware. He's just too much of a gamer to let himself get submitted or anything like that. Morono is just better on the ground than Rodriguez. But Rodriguez, regardless, grappling or striking, he is damn hard to finish. I mean, it took Ian Gary, which, I mean, Ian Gary is not really known for KO power, but I mean, he's basically a top 5 fighter. So it really does speak volume for D-Rod. And Yeah, I've got to take Alex Morono here. I think he's just going to get a clean decision win. I think he's going to catch D-Rod offbeat. I think he's going to do a very good job of timing his strikes, and D-Rod's going to swing. He's going to miss. Morono counters with a body kick. Miss, counter with a body kick. I think he's just going to chop Rodriguez down. Get some actual good takedowns in there as well. Morono's got a bag of tricks when it comes to takedowns. I mean, he's done Imanari rolls. He's done, he's got single legs, double legs. He's pretty much got a lot of things that he can utilize if he gets himself into a good position, which I'm confident he can do ultimately if he really does find his way. And against a guy that is as slow as D-Rod, I think it's going to happen. And D-Rod is just on the slope, because I mean, if you count the Li Jingliang split decision loss, which he should have had, he's 1-4 in his last 5, and he's not getting any younger. And ultimately, even though Morono's last performance was horseshit, I just think it was an off night for him, and I think he's going to get this one done. Moving up to Corey McKenna versus Julia Pilastri. Now, Corey McKenna, she comes out of a good camp, alpha male. She obviously fights with, trains with Macy Barber as well, so one of the best in the division above her. And she does have good striking. She's got good striking, good forward pressure. She lands pretty nice combinations and just makes things a bit ugly. But that's because she has to do it. She has to do it because she has the shortest reach in the UFC. 58.5-inch reach is just so much of an uphill battle against anyone. I mean, the next person above her is like Vanessa Demopoulos, I believe, at like 59 or 59.5. And Vanessa Demopoulos has to have a very good jiu-jitsu game. And Corey McKenna doesn't really have a great jiu-jitsu game. And speaking of that, she's just come off a very brutal armbar finish to Jacqueline Amorim. So it could make her hesitate towards the ground game, because Pilastri, she's pretty well rounded. She's got 3-0 with subs, 4-0 with KO TKOs. And aside from her first 2 years of her pro debut, she's only lost to pretty good competition. She lost to Josephine Knudsen, who was beating the shit out of her. But Josephine Knudsen is a very, very good fighter who is going to get in the top 15 easily. And Jasmine Jasuda Vicious, who is a weight class above her. So, yeah, that really speaks for itself. And in that sense, Pilastri has never been finished either. So she is durable, but she needs to make sure she's not complacent, because McKenna does have speed on her side. She's got the speed. She can get takedowns as well. And Pilastri against Knudsen, bad. Like her mannerisms. She was smiling. She was acting like she was just smiling at her. She was just like really getting frustrated, like visibly frustrated, which is just a nightmare for the judges. 5-4 with decision wins. So that clearly makes sense, and it's a tell for itself. But I'm taking Pilastri in this fight regardless, because Corey, seriously, she needs atom weight. Not because of her weight, it's because of that reach. She needs smaller girls to fight, and it's just every fight's going to be an uphill battle for her, and the physical capabilities of her is just her biggest detriment. I just don't think she has what it takes to hang in the top of that division. I hope she proves me wrong, but yeah, against someone like Pilastri, who has 5 inches of reach over her and has decent striking, good body kicks as well, I'm taking the unanimous decision win here for Pilastri. I think it'll be 29-28 because, as I said, McKenna, very good with forward pressure, good with her combinations and just making it a bit ugly, especially if she gets the forward pressure. I think she can steal the first round just straight off the bat, just using aggression. But then I think Pilastri just really, really puts it together, and I think she gets the 29-28 decision from those last 2 rounds. Moving on to Grant Dawson versus Rafa Garcia. So Grant Dawson does have a lot of interesting fights at the upper echelon of the division that he's in because of his style. He is definitely one of the best like actual jiu-jitsu based artists there is in that division, without a doubt. But obviously Rafa Garcia, similar to his Joe Solecki fight, is very similar in that way. So this is going to be a very, very much a chess match on the ground. But the wrestling and the grappling transitional capabilities of Grant Dawson are just ultimately stronger. That's why he is just simply ranked higher. And look, Rafa, he's very fast. He's very fast on the feet. He's just quick in terms of transition and everything. He's short and explosive, and he's got the volume. And ultimately, even though he's got 1 KO, I mean, Grant Dawson's chin is fucking suspect after Bobby Green, so you never know. But Rafa Garcia just is incredible in the striking department, so I can't just take him out of the blue. And Grant Dawson, on the feet as well. Accuracy, speed. He's ultimately, with his strike speed itself, better than Garcia. So ultimately, it will be a chess game, but just like the Selecki fight, I'm going to be taking Dawson here. I think he just lands the better straight shots, uses that 2-inch reach advantage, and also just out-transitions him on the ground to get a unanimous decision win for all the jiu-jitsu and wrestling lovers in this sport. I think they will both put on a show, but ultimately, I think they'll both cancel each other out in terms of submission opportunities. But Dawson, just the high-level fighter that is going to get it done. Moving up the card to the co-main event, Junyong Park versus Brad Tavares. So we finally got this fight again. This was originally supposed to be a co-main event on a fight night a couple months ago. And I did do a prediction on that, and it has not changed. I'm taking Junyong Park. And Junyong Park, reason is just more well-rounded overall. He's younger, still in that prime age range, and look, it might be tricky for him to get it to the ground because of the takedown defense of Tavares, which is very good. But Junyong Park has good boxing. I mean, he's pretty much good everywhere, and he can threaten Tavares pretty much everywhere. Whereas Tavares, I just don't really see what he has to offer against Park. Ground game, no. Striking, if he gets in an exchange, Junyong Park, too technical. So I don't see that. Park also just lands at a higher clip, 60% clip overall. And even though Park doesn't have the best head movement, if they're trading, I'm going to be taking Park anyway, because at this stage in Tavares' career, I'm liking Park chances to stay awake much more, because Tavares has just taken way too much damage in his career. I mean, you look against Strickus, you look against Robert Whittaker, that was one of the most brutal, obscene knockouts you've ever seen, so definitely check that one out if you haven't. And yeah, ultimately I think Junyong Park is just the guy that has the answers to really exploit Brad Tavares here, and ultimately I think that he's going to get it done by unanimous decision win. Tavares, yes, chin's a bit gone now, but I don't think Park is going to get it done. I think Tavares, obviously being the veteran he is, he has ways of keeping himself safe. So I think that Park is ultimately going to get it done by that decision win, and, you know, hopefully get closer to that top 15 spot again. And moving on to the main event, we have Brandon Royval versus Tatsuro Taira, the title eliminator for 125 pounds. And I can tell you, I am very happy that this is the main event, and it deserves to be so, because we look at Brandon Royval. Brandon Royval, a very good, versatile striker, nice boxing, pretty long as well when it comes to the legs, when it comes to the reach even. Tatsuro Taira is the same, but Royval, he's got the experience there. He's very good with his jiu-jitsu. I mean, even with his wrestling pedigree as well. He's only lost by submission once, which was controversial in itself. He busted up his shoulder, I believe. So it's kind of really hard to state that as fact. And he's had 5-round experience. And when we look at Tatsuro Taira, Taira is just a forward momentum machine. This guy has just got so much momentum and hype around him. He's literally the star boy for Japan. And Japan, along with obviously parts of America itself, kicked off the whole of MMA. So Tatsuro Taira has a lot behind him, you know, pushing him through. And he can become a superstar, and I really hope he does become a champion. I honestly, he's one of the favorites for me in the whole entire division, especially after the Alex Perez fight. I mean, the transitional capabilities of this dude are crazy. This guy is able to take you back, fling around, do a 360 and take you back again just for fun. He has incredible transitional capabilities for the age that he is. And that's something that Royval's got to watch out for, without a doubt. I mean, they're both just got to watch out for each other in every single department. I'll say that Brandon Royval, if he's going to take this by any kind of finish, it's going to be a KO TKO. I mean, he is so offbeat and unorthodox with his striking capabilities. You have got the spinning spinning elbow against Kai Kara France. Then you've also got the knee, the off-time knee against Mateus Nicolau, which chinned him. Taira has to be extremely careful because Royval can catch you in the most weird places. But then Tatsuro Taira on the other side, transitionally, from what we've seen, honestly, I think there's a possibility he could edge out Royval in terms of those capabilities. I think if any of them are going to submit the other, it's going to be Taira submitting Royval. But ultimately, I don't actually like Brandon Royval that much. And I love Tatsuro Taira, but game's a game. Royval, the experience. I got to take him with the experience. I think this will be an extremely competitive fight. This could be a split decision easily. It's going to be very close. I think it's just the transitions, the control. I think the submission attempts and just whoever lands the cleaner shots. I mean, obviously that's MMA criteria, but it's really evident in this fight because they can both do a bit of everything. But Royval, with that experience, that 5-round experience, Taira not being a bit of an unknown as to, how well he fares in championship rounds, it's really hard to state. And I think if Taira isn't getting this done in the first 3 rounds, Royval's taking it in championship rounds. And I think that Taira is going to take the first 2 rounds fairly convincingly. I think he's going to do very well with just those transitional capabilities, which Royval was just not expecting to that level. And then I think that's when Royval does turn it around. I think Royval going through the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, Taira is going to be a bit more tired using all those transitional capabilities that he does have to try and get a finish on the ground, which Royval is very defensively sound. And I think Royval waits him out, gets to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, really starts applying pressure with the striking he has, which I think he's just a little bit better at. And I think he just gets that 48-47 decision win, and he'll be next for the title. Moving on to the fight card awards and kicking it off with the fight of the night, we are going straight back to Brandon Royval versus Tatsuro Taira. I mean, there's not much more I can say about this. Look, I think these guys just stylistically are going to put on a hell of a fight, whether it's on the ground, whether it's on the feet. They both got good volume. They're both transitional, absolute maestros. It's going to be very fascinating to see the chess game that they have, hopefully for the full 25 minutes, because it's always entertaining. But as I said, I think Brandon Royval, as the 3-1 dog and as the upset of the night, I think he's going to get it. I think that he just has that experience. He's been in wars. He's been in more fights than Taira has, and more just high stakes. He's just more of a veteran overall, and I think that he is going to be able to exploit minor weaknesses that Taira has in this game, and I think he's just going to be able to edge it. And moving on to fighter to watch with absolutely no Australian bias here whatsoever, Cody Haddon. Now, Cody Haddon, this guy, honestly, he ticks all boxes. Like, obviously, going against the better competition, he has a lot of work to do to get there, but I'm calling it now. He will be a top 15 fighter because he has clean boxing. He's got that Perth, that whatever they put in the water in Perth. He has got the striking like JDM. He's got the striking like Urseg. I mean, the guy's only lost to Urseg. He's got the boxing. He's got the kickboxing. He's got the counter striking. He's got the wrestling. He's got the jiu-jitsu. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt. Do I need to go on? I mean, he has pretty much everything there, and he is very calm and cool under pressure, lands good shots, good strike accuracy. I think he is going to be doing some damage, not only in this card, but in the division moving forward. Now, moving on to finish of the night, and also being Australian bias, Junior Tafa, I think it's teed up for him to get finished of the night here. Just going off that experience that he does have, the versatile striking game that he does have, the kicks, the knees. Ultimately, I think that he's just going to be. I think it's just going to be too much. I think he's just going to be too much in his matchup, and ultimately, I see him getting a brutal finish here. And it's good for him not having to fight a wrestler for once. And yeah, ultimately, I think he's going to be able to really just come to life and put on a show, and just hopefully just get back that momentum.
Now, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you want to see more MMA-based content, definitely check out my mythical matchups video on Jose Aldo versus Anthony Pettis back in 2015 when they were both on top of the game, to see who would have won, to see if Jose Aldo could move up to lightweight to fight Pettis and fight for double champ status, as they were both champions at the time. And also, thank you so much for obviously watching the content, and please like, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.